Why is it important for us to have our own narrative? What is your view on that?
See, the point is that we started out as an India that was very fearful of the rest of the world. Maybe because we had been colonized or whatever. And so, import substitution, close ourselves to the world, and, be very moralistic towards the rest of the world rather than participating with the rest of the world. That was our view. Then we opened it up. It certainly benefited us globalizing. But then we globalized into a world where essentially other people set the rules. And one part of that problem is that there is a global elite, George Soroses of the world, who said, oh yes, you can participate, but we will set the rules for you and we will tell you what you should think about yourself. Now, that too doesn't work. So as Indians, we want to participate in the world. We are accepting, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So yes, the world is a family. We are a part of the world. This is not the old import substitution universe of being fearful of the world. But we want to participate in the world in our own terms. And why shouldn't we? We are 1.4 billion people. One sixth of the world population. We'll be the world's third largest economy in no time at all. We have one of the world's largest diasporas. Our diaspora is both proud and successful in all across the world. There is no reason why we should be defensive about our civilization and our roots.
Right.
So we want to participate in the world, but in our own terms. Therefore, we will be rooted in who we are. We not going to pretend to be somebody else.
Right.
Now, this showing through at multiple levels. Even in the West, say, Rishi Sunak doesn't hide the fact that he is celebrating practicing Hindu.
Right.
Or you have Vivek in the United States. So this is a very big change.
Right.
2 decades ago, these same people would have changed their name from Vivek to Viv or something like that and tried to fit in.
Right.
We don't do that anymore. They said, yeah, we'll participate, but we will do it in our own terms. And while this is happening with our diaspora, this is also happening here. This is not to suggest that we want to invade the rest of the world and obliterate it or dominate it. No. But we will participate and we will tell our own story. Now, as we begin to do this, also remember that the rest of the world, especially this so-called liberal, self-declared liberal elite, I mean, one can debate whether they're actually liberal, but I would argue not. But the fact of the matter is the self-certified liberal elite finds this threatening. Because here is a country and here are a bunch of people who are clearly succeeding, who we don't quite control. And so they will try in various ways, try and manipulate this narrative. And one of the ways, which I have written about extensively, is this use of global indices of various kinds. तो आपको बताएंगे, global hunger index, bottom of the list. Global obesity index, top of the list. अरे भाई, hungry भी हैं और obese भी हैं. Think through which one you want to we are. Then you will say, in fact, there is something called the World Democracy Index. So democracy index mein we are some 98 out in the list. World's largest democracy is 98 in the list. So who is the top guys? The top guys are Kingdom of Norway, Kingdom of Denmark, Kingdom of Sweden. The main finding is effectively that to be a good democracy, you have to be a kingdom. So this is the sheer absurdity of all of this. I mean, there is a Global Academic Freedom Index. In 2022, we were far below Afghanistan. Now, at least,
be reasonable.
Reasonable. Even if you're lying, at least try and hide it. I mean, you cannot be this absurd.
Right.
So my point is, this is something we should expect. If you are going to engage in the world, the rest of the world who is losing their position in the world, in the system. And by the way, many of these people are being also questioned in their own countries. So there is a new thing called Environment, Social and Governance Norms, ESG norms. You may have heard. It's now getting imposed on everything. Now, there is no globally agreed parameters. Okay, some random NGOs came up and created some parameters and they are going around certifying everybody. Now, if you dig a little bit, you will discover that it's the same three funders who have created all these NGOs and these parameters. USAID, Soros, and one more. I think it's Omidyar or something. There are 3-4 like this. And essentially what they are doing is a form of neo-colonialism, but they are basically using layer upon layer of institutions or trying to tell you, we will tell you कि तुम अच्छे बच्चे हो कि नहीं हो. हम तुमको सर्टिफिकेट देंगे, तुम सही हमारा काम करोगे तो हमको और एक सर्टिफिकेट देंगे और एक लॉलीपॉप देंगे. And they find it a little awkward because India doesn't play by these rules.
Right.
हाँ हम रशिया से ऑयल इंपोर्ट करेंगे, क्या कर लोगे?
हाँ, right. क्या कर लोगे? That pissed them off so much.
So so now the point of the matter is, so this is an environment where we have to keep our eyes open and realize that there is a huge effort to try and manipulate us.
Right.
And there are many people inside India who, for their own political, ideological, or whatever agendas, will participate in this.
Right.
In fact, one of the key ways in which the rest of the world system actually these tiny cabal controls and finds its way into our system is essentially not by having very large numbers. Many of these things are not about very large numbers. They're just small number of think tanks they have abroad. They have their friends in Indian academia, NGOs here. Many of them are Lodi Road. In and around India Habitat Center, India International Center, उसी जोन में इर्द गिर्द में वहीं presentation करते हैं, वहीं ज्ञान देते हैं. And many of them have a finger in the system because they are children of our own elite.
Right.
You know, bureaucrats, judges, etc. Their own daughters and sons work in these and they get dollarized salaries.
Right.
वही लोग हम लोग को विंटर में छुट्टी पे आते हैं अमेरिका से और इंडिया हैबिटेट सेंटर में हम लोगों को पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन में समझाते हैं हाउ टू इम्प्रूव इंडिया. तो दिस इज हाउ वी आर बीइंग मैनिपुलेटेड. सो वी हैव टू क्रिएट एन इंडिजिनस नैरेटिव एज वेल एंड वी हैव टू बी विलिंग टू go out there and not only interpret ourselves to them, we are now reaching a point where we should be willing to interpret them as well, i.e. turn the gaze.
Right. That is a power move.
That's a power move.
Right.
And so let me give you a concrete example of this.
Yes, sir.
You'll regularly see some election happen, some political event or something happens in India, economic, political event. Then you will read our top newspapers, Times of India, which by the way is the world's largest English language newspaper. Okay. Right. Times of India, however, in its main edit page, will have an editorial by some random Western academic, maybe some associate professor at some random university, and he will get to write about why elections in Karnataka went somewhere or Madhya Pradesh went somewhere. Now, how does he know? Right. Now, the equivalent of this would be if some, associate professor of one of our universities was writing in New York Times about Illinois में कुछ election हुआ या New York State में कुछ election हुआ.
Right.
He is now no one in New York Times is never going to give space to an Indian based in India, no matter how good he is, space in their edit page on dissecting American politics.
Right.
They just would get laughed out. Right? They just won't.
Right.
But we are happy to do it the other way around.
Right.
In fact, we routinely do it. Why? Because of this problem that we have, we still
have a hangover of
we
sorts.
have a hangover of some sort.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that occasionally it's okay.
Right.
But we do it routinely. You just look at Times of India, Hindustan Times, Economic Times, Hindu, all of these top line Indian magazines. Or you look at the guests in our television channels. Random from Brown University or Columbia University, some random associate professor will come, may even have an Indian name, it doesn't matter. Why should we give space to them?
Right.
After all, will the flip side work? Same thing, for example, when, very senior official from India goes abroad. Right. Now, you go and look at when they talk on some stage somewhere, you see who their equivalent they are talking to. They're not talking to their own equal. They're usually talking to somebody who's many layers below them in the ecosystem of that place. Right. So, minister from India will be quite happy to go to the UK and go to Chatham House and be at the same stage as a top-level journalist, but a journalist. Would the equivalent happen the other way around? No.
Right.